Hey folks, welcome back to Canada's Boxing Channel. I hope everyone's having a good day. A little overcast here, might rain later on. Rain is good. All the snow has gone except for just around the edges of the fields. This all makes me happy. Played a little bit of golf. Put it this way, it wasn't like the Masters. Let's just leave it at that. Anyhow, to boxing. We're into fight week for Ben the Surgeon Whittaker against Liam Cannonball Cameron 2. It's taking place this coming Sunday, April the 20th, in Birmingham, and it's put on by Ben Shalom of Boxer fame. I thought I would give a preview, a prediction, as per usual, but I want to put something out there, full, true, plain disclosure, put my cards on the table. I am not a fan of Ben Whittaker. So, you can take that for what it's worth. I'll try not to be biased in my assessment of what's going to happen, but I'll be upfront with you. I don't like Ben Whittaker. Let me explain my reasoning. I don't entirely dislike flashy fighters. Sugar Ray Leonard was flashy. I liked Sugar Ray Leonard. Prince Naz was flashy. I actually liked Naz. But there's something about Ben Whittaker that I dislike. And I think it boils down to when he's been very showboaty and flashy in the ring with his, all the time really, up until he fought Liam Cameron the first time round, his flashiness and showboating was really disrespectful towards his opponents, in my eyes. This is just my view, okay? Just one guy's opinion on the internet. And by doing so, in my view, again, he disrespected the sport. Clearly, he's a very talented athlete. He's an Olympic silver medalist. He's very, very, very talented. And he's a great athlete. But the showboating was taken too far, in my view. The other thing I dislike about Ben Whittaker is, and again, this goes back to the first fight he had with Cameron, he was so rude and dismissive and condescending, talking down to Cameron, even down to the, pointing out, that he was wearing inexpensive clothing, unlike Whittaker, who's actually made a tremendous amount of money already in a very short career. And I thought that was uncalled for and inappropriate. So he's really, I'm turned off, right? So I don't like the guy. And if that comes through in the rest of what I've got to say, well, that's at least you know. You don't have to guess, right? I'm putting my cards on the table. Okay, so let's start with Whittaker. He's age 27. Like I say, he's an Olympic silver medalist. His record is 8 wins, no losses, and 1 draw. And the draw was against Cameron. He's rated number 68 in the world, according to BoxRec. He's rated, again, according to BoxRec, the United Kingdom's number 13. He's from West Bromwich, which is in the Midlands. Liam Cannonball Cameron is 23 wins, 6 losses, and 1 draw. He's aged 34. He's rated 106 in the world, and he's rated 17 in the UK. So a kind of a comparable UK rating, significant difference in world ratings. And he's from Sheffield, which is in Yorkshire. This fight, which is of course a rematch at light heavy, really stems out of what happened in the first fight. And in the first fight, as I'm sure we all know, Ben Whittaker came out and he was somewhat different to the way he'd performed previously. Gone was the flash, the dancing, the showboating. And he seemed to want to fight a different fight. Which, you know, fair enough, you're stepping up. Cameron was a step up. But he was seemingly very square on, didn't have a lot of head movement, set his feet too much, and seemed to want to fight with Cameron, which really is Cameron's game. So it surprised me and probably surprised everybody else that he didn't seem to be fighting the fight that we were expecting to see. And then, you know, particularly in the last round, he showed indicia, if you like, of having had enough. Like he spat his gum shield out. He's engaged in a series of low blows, which he was warned for. He was very lucky not to lose a point for. And then we came to that preposterous moment in time where he was against the ropes, and it looks very much in slow motion as though he pushed himself back over the ropes, dragging Liam Cameron with him. He then said he couldn't continue, though he provided no evidence of any injury. When he was leaving at the airport, he broke a fan's cell phone who was trying to take a picture of him. He was hobbling around on an injured ankle, but nothing was ever produced by way of evidence to show that he had a genuine injury. And so consequently, most people, myself included, thought that he had looked for a way out, that he quit. Consequently, he became known as Ben Whittaker. And that's a moniker that's going to take a while for him to live down. Liam Cameron, on the other hand, was, you know, happy to continue fighting. The referee, the adjudication was that it was a draw, which, again, you know, people were saying, well, it should have been Cameron's fight, but it looked like Cameron was doing the better work in the first fight. Cameron was, quite frankly, gassing Whittaker out. Now, subsequently, Whittaker has said, look, I didn't really train. I was playing PlayStation or some other video game thing during training camp. I didn't try. It was the very, very, very best version of Liam Cameron that showed up that night. And it was the very, very, very worst version of me that showed up that night. And still, at Cameron's very, very, very best, he couldn't beat the absolute worst version of me. And, I mean, that's fair enough. That's his position, right? He's denied that he quit, and understandably, you don't really want to admit to your opponent that, yeah, you were too much for me, so I quit, because that gives your opponent a massive psychological edge going into the second fight. But he's treated the whole thing a bit like a joke, in my eyes. I watched a show on Sky Sports, a face-off, before this rematch, and he was supercilious, sarcastic. He had this really smirk on his face. It made you just want to slap that smirk right off his face, to be perfectly honest with you. Whereas Liam Cameron, he just strikes me as a really authentic kind of, I mean, dare I say it, you know, working class guy. He seems to be a guy who's had his fair share of hard knocks. He took a ban for substance abuse, recreational substance abuse. He's had personal tragedy. I believe his stepdaughter passed away. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, his significant other is presently facing some legal difficulties. Cameron's just the kind of guy that comes across as a old school type boxer. Salt of the earth, you might say. Authentic, honest, had his fair share of troubles, risen above them, ordinary, workmanlike, decent guy. And, you know, what does this mean for going into the rematch? Well, if Ben Whittaker doesn't really understand or accept inside himself that on the first fight, Cameron was getting the better of him and that he looked for a way out, he'll probably think, well, there's nothing I need to improve. If that's the case, this doesn't bode well for him. Liam Cameron's basically just got to do the same, only more of it. If, on the other hand, Whittaker has admitted in himself, and I don't mean for public consumption, I mean in himself, that, oh yeah, shit, Cameron was getting the better of me, I need to change my game plan, I need to be a different guy in the ring, then, it's probable that he can make technical changes that will allow him to win the fight. Because I think, as much as I dislike him, Whittaker is probably the more talented guy. And he's certainly the better athlete. So if he focuses on his talent and athleticism, trains properly and doesn't gas out, he ought to win. Cameron essentially has a lower ceiling. Cameron's, doing what Cameron does. Now, one thing, however, and this was in that face-off that I was talking about, when Whittaker was saying it was the very, very, very best version of Cameron, Cameron pointed out that before the fight, I think about 4 weeks before the fight, he'd busted his nose. So maybe it wasn't the best version of Cameron. If a better version of Cameron shows up, then I'd be expecting to see Cameron close out the show early doors. Now, Whittaker's got a new trainer. He's gone to Andy Lee, who I think will bring more out of Whittaker, probably more discipline in the training camp. Certainly wouldn't be allowing him to play PlayStation all the time. Whittaker's also probably concerned about his gas tank, because we've had this absolutely embarrassing nonsense with Ben Shalomicus, who's been sending different contracts out to different fighters. And we all know about this. Cameron signed to fight 12 rounds. Whittaker says he signed to fight 10 rounds. No doubt some coin of the realm has gone from Whittaker's camp to Cameron's camp to get Cameron to agree to a 10-round fight. So that tells me something. It tells me Whittaker is worried about stamina, which kind of, doesn't juxtapose nicely with my claim that Whittaker's the better athlete. It's weird. I don't really understand that. And it probably gives Cameron a psychological edge, plus a little bit of extra, readies in the back pocket. So Cameron's also already won, if you ask me. How do I see this fight playing out? Whittaker has to fight a different game. He has to work behind a jab. He has to be more side-on. He has to be more fleet of foot. He doesn't want to be planting his feet so much. He doesn't need to be fighting Cameron's game. If he does that, I think he can win on points. I don't believe he can stop Cameron. I don't think he's got enough power. Cameron, on the other hand, just needs to do exactly what he was doing before. Break down Whittaker. Try to stop him, quite frankly. I'm always suspicious now about judging. If it goes to the judge's table, will Cameron get a fair shake? Because, of course, Whittaker's the guy with millions of subscribers on Instabook or whatever he's on. And will Cameron get a fair shake at the judge's table? I would like to say yes, but recent evidence tells me that that's something to, that could be a bit of wishful thinking. I really, really, really want Cameron to win. I want Cameron to absolutely wipe the floor with Whittaker. But a sneaky thing in my belly tells me that we might be looking at a Whittaker points win. He'll have a different game plan. Andy Lee will get him to focus. And there is always that issue about the judging. So my brain tells me a Whittaker points win. He's going off decimal odds at the moment of 1.29. Cameron's going off decimal odds of 3.5, my jurisdiction. I'm going to put some money with my heart on Cameron. But if I was advising somebody, I would say Whittaker is probably the guy to back. I would really like to be wrong on this because I absolutely want Cameron to win. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Please like, please share, please subscribe, and most importantly, have a fabulous day. Thanks for watching.